DC is rebooting its cinematic universe. Again. But this time, it's not Batman or Wonder Woman at the center. It's Superman. And not just any Superman. This one is crafted by James Gunn, the architect of the Guardians, the mind behind Peacemaker, and now the man responsible for the most important hero in comic book history. Gunn says he wants to bring hope back, to give us the Superman we used to believe in. But can that really work in 2025? In a world of superhero fatigue, Snyder loyalists, and audience burnout? Can a wholesome Kryptonian in glasses save the DCU? Or will this be the final, fatal misfire? This is the Superman who could save everything, or doom it all. The stakes. Why this Superman matters. James Gunn's Superman isn't just another superhero film. It's the cornerstone of the DC Universe reboot. And that makes it more than just important. It makes it everything. The last era of DC films was riddled with false starts, creative shakeups, and box office letdowns. The Flash tried to juggle nostalgia and multiversal spectacle, but collapsed under its own ambition, failing to justify its chaotic narrative or high-stakes marketing. Black Adam promised a new hierarchy of power, but ended up delivering outdated tropes, muddled storytelling, and a PR battle over Henry Cavill's return. Shazam! Fury of the Gods couldn't find a clear tonal identity, leaving audiences unsure whether it was for kids or adults. Blue Beetle, despite genuine heart and cultural significance, felt stranded, released too late to matter and too early to fit into Gunn's new world. Meanwhile, Wonder Woman 1984 derailed a beloved character with tonal whiplash. An Aquaman sequel struggled under the weight of delays and reshoots. These weren't just bad films, they were directionless ones. Each new entry felt disconnected, reactionary, and riddled with behind-the-scenes instability. DC wasn't building a universe, it was throwing darts at a moving target. The result? A franchise trapped in limbo. Not quite a reboot, not quite a continuation. And audiences felt that confusion. Trust eroded. Box office returns dwindled. By the time the dust settled, it wasn't just Marvel DC was trying to catch up with. It was the shadow of its own missed potential. Gunn's Superman is supposed to change that. It's not a sequel, not a spin-off, not a patch. It's a foundation stone designed to carry the entire cinematic reboot on its back. It marks the official launch of Chapter 1, Gods and Monsters, a deliberate thematic reset meant to shed the tonal baggage of the Snyder era and build something cohesive from the ground up. Unlike previous attempts that stitched together disconnected projects, this Superman is the first brick in a long-term architectural plan for the DCU. Everything that comes after, whether it's Supergirl, Booster Gold, or Swamp Thing, will be shaped by the tone, success, and reception of this film. And Superman isn't just a character here, he's a statement of intent, a symbol. The tone setter for the next decade of DC films. His portrayal will define the emotional and philosophical blueprint for every story that follows. If this Superman is sincere, heroic, and morally grounded, it invites a return to earnest storytelling across the board. But if he feels hollow or performative, it casts a long shadow over the rest of the slate. He's not just a protagonist, he's the litmus test for whether this reboot actually has a soul. If he works, everything else has a chance. Supergirl, Green Lantern, The Authority, even the eventual Justice League. But if he fails, the reboot crumbles before it begins. That's why this Superman matters. He's not just saving the world, he's saving the franchise. The pressure on this film is enormous. It has to please comic purists, casual fans, Snyder loyalists, and a generation of viewers who've grown jaded with capes entirely. And more than anything, it has to remind us why Superman matters at all. The promise. What Gunn is doing. Right. So what's actually giving people hope? It starts with tone. Gunn has been clear. This isn't a cynical Superman. It's not a deconstruction drenched in tragedy or ambiguity. It's not another gritty, trauma-soaked origin story bathed in grayscale. This is a Superman grounded in timeless values, kindness, patience, humility. It's about restraint, not revenge, about a man who could burn the world down in a second, and yet chooses every day to be gentle, compassionate, and hopeful. In a cinematic era where power is too often equated with dominance or vengeance, this Superman stands apart simply by showing mercy. And that choice, Gunn argues, is what makes him truly super. David Corenswet's Clark Kent isn't haunted or broken. He's not a reluctant hero. He's someone raised with values, grounded in empathy, and willing to lead by example, even when the world around him doesn't. Then there's Lois. Casting Rachel Brosnahan brings charisma, intelligence, and sharp wit back to the Daily Planet. Their dynamic isn't just romantic, it's ideological. Two people trying to protect truth in different ways. The production design echoes classic Americana, but updated with a contemporary cinematic polish. Small-town textures, warm sunlight, clean cityscapes, and traditional newspaper offices reflect a world that feels grounded, aspirational, and lived in. The Superman suit itself strikes a balance between tradition and reinvention. Recognizable, but with modern tailoring and brighter hues that visibly counter the muted, metallic tones of the Snyder era. Even the Daily Planet interior feels purposeful, retro but not nostalgic, fresh but not sanitized. The lighting design favors golden hour warmth over monochromatic gloom, signaling emotional accessibility. And the score, from what little we've heard, leans orchestral, emotional, and hopeful, invoking themes of aspiration rather than dread. Altogether, these choices aren't just aesthetic, they're ideological. They communicate that this is a Superman movie, unafraid to feel good, to feel human, and to aim upward without irony. And then there's Gunn himself. Love him or not, he's proven he can blend ensemble chaos with emotional clarity. He understands how to give strange characters a soul. Guardians of the Galaxy wasn't just funny, it was moving. And Peacemaker turned a joke character into one of the most vulnerable men in the DCEU. With Superman, Gunn says he's channeling stories like All-Star Superman, Kingdom Come, and for the man who has everything. Not for spectacle, but for moral weight. That's not just refreshing, it's necessary. Because if this reboot is going to work, it needs more than just new faces. It needs a heart. And from everything we've seen so far, this Superman might actually have one. The risk. What could go wrong? But for everything Gunn is doing right, there are still very real risks. First, there's the tone gamble. Hope is beautiful, but it's also hard to sell in a world burned out by irony, snark, and subversion. Audiences today have been conditioned by over a decade of genre-savvy storytelling, where emotional vulnerability is often undercut with sarcasm and idealism is met with suspicion. Meta-commentary reigns, anti-heroes dominate, and gritty realism is the default language of modern blockbusters. Against that backdrop, a character like Superman, earnest, moral, and transparently good, can feel outdated to some. There's a risk that this sincerity won't read as refreshing, but rather corny or tone-deaf. Will modern audiences allow themselves to believe in a hero who doesn't have a dark side? Or will they tune out, mistaking decency for dullness? Second, there's the brand baggage. No matter how much this Superman reboots, it can't erase what came before. The ghosts of Cavill, Snyder, and the fractured DCEU still linger in fan memory. And they come with expectations, grievances, and comparisons. For years, Henry Cavill's Superman symbolized a darker, more conflicted interpretation of the character, one that resonated deeply with a passionate fan base. Zack Snyder's visual style, narrative tone, and mythological ambition left a lasting imprint, for better or worse. Even as the studio pivots, fans still debate what should have been, and many still hope for a return to that version. Gunn isn't just reinventing a character, he's inheriting a legacy that remains emotionally raw for millions. That makes every creative decision feel like a referendum. He's stepping into a minefield where even the most thoughtful approach could provoke backlash. Because for many, the definitive Superman already existed, and anything else is a replacement. Third is fatigue. Across the board. Superhero cinema isn't dead, but it's tired. The golden age of the genre, defined by billion-dollar box office runs and cultural ubiquity, is now in the rearview mirror. What once felt exciting and event-driven has begun to feel predictable, overextended, and formulaic. Audiences have grown weary of multiverses, bloated runtimes, CGI armies, and the illusion of consequence. Each new entry is met with more skepticism, viewers questioning whether it's essential or just another cog in a never-ending machine. Marvel's recent missteps have only reinforced this sentiment, but the ripple effects reach DC too. People are no longer excited by the promise of universe building alone. They want stories with impact, characters who evolve, and films that stand on their own. Rebuilding trust and genuine anticipation means proving that this Superman isn't just another link in a chain, but a story worth telling for its own sake. And finally, there's Gunn's own voice. While many love his quirky, heartfelt chaos, others find it too self-aware or tonally uneven. If that sensibility leaks too far into Superman, if Clark feels too ironic, or the side characters too zany, it could fracture the emotional weight he's trying to build. So yes, Gunn's Superman might be full of promise, but it's walking a tightrope. And the fall could be steep. The bigger picture. Setting the stage for the DCU. Gunn's Superman isn't landing in isolation. It's the opening chapter of a much larger saga. Chapter 1. Gods and Monsters is meant to be the narrative DNA of the new DC universe. A shared world where myth, science, politics, and morality collide in stories that feel both fantastical and grounded. It's not just a reboot designed to correct past missteps. It's a creative overhaul meant to redefine what a connected cinematic universe can be in a post-Marvel fatigue era. By anchoring the storytelling in character-driven themes and ethical dilemmas, this chapter aims to weave together gods with flaws and monsters with humanity. Gunn isn't just changing the players, he's changing the rules. The choice to start with Superman is strategic. He's the sun the rest of this solar system will orbit. If audiences believe in him, it creates emotional buy-in for what's next. And what's next is ambitious. We already know Supergirl. Woman of Tomorrow will follow. It's a harsher story, a cosmic reflection of Superman's morality, testing how heroism survives in a crueler universe where empathy is often mistaken for weakness. This Kara Zor-El is shaped by a far more brutal upbringing than Clark, and her journey will push the boundaries of what it means to stay good in a galaxy that doesn't care. Then, we've got the Authority, a morally grey team of superhumans who don't just question Superman's ideals, they challenge the entire concept of ethical restraint. They're the anti-Superman in many ways, and their inclusion could redefine what heroism even looks like in this universe. Creature Commandos and Waller lean into bizarre and gritty corners of the DCU, where monsters and morally ambiguous leaders operate in the shadows. Meanwhile, Lanterns brings back grounded cosmic storytelling, with Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart investigating a dark mystery with deep galactic consequences. And Paradise Lost, a Game of Thrones-style prequel set in Themyscira, will explore power, legacy, and myth from a feminist political lens. These aren't just spin-offs, they're thematic expansions. And it's clear Gunn isn't playing it safe. He's building a world that invites contrast, moral tension, and bold swings. But it all depends on Superman. If he doesn't resonate, none of it does. Even the casting reflects this interconnected vision. We're already seeing characters like Mr. Terrific, Hawkgirl, Guy Gardner, Metamorpho, and the Engineer, all debuting in this film. That's not just world building, it's table setting. These aren't throwaway cameos, they're seeds. Gunn is building a living, breathing DC universe. Not just a franchise, but a narrative ecosystem. And Superman is its moral north. If it works, we get a DCU where Supergirl and Swamp Thing can coexist. Where satire, horror, and myth can share the same screen. Where legacy matters and continuity enhances rather than restricts. But first, it has to land this. The legacy. What this Superman could mean. This isn't just about fixing DC's brand. It's about reclaiming a cultural myth. Superman was the first, the prototype, the gold standard. He didn't just launch a genre, he defined what it meant to be a hero in modern mythology. And over the decades we've seen him change, sometimes boldly to match the spirit of rebellion, sometimes awkwardly to chase cultural trends. He's been an immigrant metaphor, a Christ figure, a government pawn, a global protector. But always, in every iteration, he served as a mirror for our times, reflecting our highest hopes, our deepest anxieties, and our evolving sense of what strength and virtue should look like. Reeves showed us idealism, truth, justice, and the unshakable belief in doing what's right, no matter the cost. Cavill showed us alienation, a god among men wrestling with identity, guilt, and the burden of expectation in a world that feared him. What will Corrinswet show us? Perhaps a balance, a Superman who understands his power without being defined by it, who embraces humanity not despite his origins, but because of them. A Superman who isn't torn between worlds, but rooted in both. If Gunn's Superman succeeds, he could become the definitive Superman for a new generation. One raised on cynicism, internet irony, and a media landscape that rarely allows space for sincere heroism. He could be a figure of hope in a time of disillusionment, offering a counter-narrative to the darkness and division that dominate headlines. A symbol of gentleness in an age of noise, Clark Kent could reintroduce the idea that true heroism isn't measured by power, but by compassion. Someone who proves that raw strength means nothing without restraint, and that kindness, patience, and principled action are not just admirable, but essential in rebuilding cultural faith in what heroes can be. He could bring Superman back to the center of the cultural conversation, not just as a character in tights, but as a moral ideal. And in doing so, he could remind us of something we forgot. That believing in heroes doesn't make you naive. It makes you brave. Superman isn't just DC's greatest hero. He's the cornerstone of what the superhero genre was built on. And now, more than ever, we need him to work. Not because the DCU needs saving, but because we do. A new generation is about to meet Superman for the first time. The question is, will they see someone worth believing in? We'll find out soon enough. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more deep dives and hot takes, and drop a comment below. What do you want from this new Superman?